Hi, in today's video I'll touch on whether now in 2021 is it a good time or not to buy a property in Denmark. If you're looking to buy an apartment or a house, this video will help you make a better and more informed decision. With that said, I'm not a registered investment advisor. This video is for information and entertainment purposes only. So if you're looking to buy an apartment or a property, also do your own research. So what's my take? Yes, this is a good time to buy. I would recommend it, but only if you're looking into the medium and long term. So let's say 4, 5 or more years. If you are looking into buying something for the short term, meaning that you're going to be staying in Denmark for only 2-3 years, or you're also looking into this for just a speculation, I would be wary. I wouldn't recommend it. I would say that you will be getting into a big risk. So for context, prices are up in Copenhagen area between 15 and 20% year on year. So prices are now between 15 and 20% higher in March 2021 than they were in March 2020. This is just insane. We're talking about a massive increase from what was already a very high baseline. So something that we need to keep in mind. Second thing is that this is not just a Denmark specific phenomenon. These big increases have been also occurring across the board in Europe, in US, and in other places as well. And the context of this is that it has been a very weird year. People have been spending a lot of time home because of these lockdowns and maybe feeling that okay, they want to buy a new place, they wanted to move out. And there's all this massive stimulus from governments. People have more money in their pockets because they can use it for eating out or they can use it for traveling and so on. So they're willing to invest more in their apartments and houses. So that's the context, something we need to keep in mind. But have we reached the peak? Wouldn't you be buying at the absolute top of the market if you buy now? The reality is that nobody knows. If you look into a year ago, all the experts were forecasting that we would have a big dip and the prices would only slightly recover a few years down the line. And look what happened, like 15 to 20% higher. I mean, that's absolutely crazy, right? So in a context like this, what you need to look is in the fundamentals. What are the fundamentals of the housing market here in Denmark? What are the fundamentals that would drive prices up or down, again, in the medium and long term, because nobody really knows what would happen a year from now. When it comes to fundamentals, there are 4 things I would like to highlight. Number 1 is that prices in Denmark and in Copenhagen specifically are cheaper in comparison to other similar cities in Europe. So when you look into a Helsinki, when you look into a Oslo, when you look into a Stockholm, prices are higher. In Copenhagen, for instance, the square meter price is around 48,000 Danish krona. When you look into Helsinki, that's around 60,000. And when you get to Stockholm, it's around 70,000. Again, always square meter prices and in Danish krona. But still, there's a big gap. And one could argue that in that context, prices that you see in Denmark, there's substantial room for growth. With that said, the whole world is a crazy bubble at the moment. One could argue that. I mean, if you look at the prices in Switzerland, if you look into the prices in Paris, those are even a lot higher than what you would see in Stockholm. So one could argue that, yeah, we're in a crazy situation, a crazy bubble, and everything could come crashing down, but who knows? The second thing I would like to highlight is that the Danish economy is strong, and there's a high correlation between strong economic growth and asset prices. And again, real estate and properties being one of the biggest assets out there. So with a strong economy and good long-term prospects, actually, you could say that after Corona is over, after we are out of this, the Danish economy will come roaring back. And again, there's a high correlation between if we have a strong economy, asset prices would likely go up. So at least it would give a bit of a backwind also to the Danish economy and help lift the property market as well. The third fundamental I would like to highlight is that there's still a lot more demand than there is supply when it comes to properties in Denmark. And the reason for that is that it's crazy expensive to rent a house, to rent an apartment when it comes to, for instance, Copenhagen. And in many cases, you will be better off from a cash flow perspective by owning the flat. You will be having more money in your pocket each month because it's just the expenses of owning the flat, the expenses of paying the mortgages and so on would be lower. That was, for instance, for my case, I have an apartment which is twice the size of what I used to rent, and I'm paying less each month when it comes to servicing this, mortgage and so on, which is pretty crazy. And that means that if you have the 5%, if you have the 20% that you need to put as a down payment, you'll be better off by owning and renting. And that, of course, will help drive prices up because there's a lot more people interested in buying than there are people interested in selling. The fourth fundamental is that all that money printing, all that money that has been created through the last year, it needs to go somewhere. and the bets are that it would just help asset prices go up. When it comes to all this money, and I'm talking about is that all these stimuluses and all these bailouts the governments in Europe, US, and almost everywhere you would say have done per Corona and to keep the economy running, they have created a lot of money. And what we have seen since 2008 when they started with these kind of programs is that all this liquidity in the medium and long term helps to lift asset prices up. Things from stocks and so on, but again, housing being one of the biggest assets. So one could argue that it will also be in the medium and long term driving prices up. Beyond fundamentals, there are two risks you should be aware of. Number one is that what if interest rates go up? We have now had interest rates super low for a long time. For almost 10 years now, we have had rates that are never more than 1 or 2%, which is absolutely insane. And if you look into last year, we had interest rates fixed for 30 years at 0.5%, which again, it's, oh my God, I mean, that's so low. And because interest rates were so low, it was easy to get a loan, or it was easy to get a bigger loan, because at the end of the day, if you're only paying 0.5% per year for 30 years, your risks are very low and your running costs for servicing this debt are very low. But what if these interest rates start going up? What if they go to 2, 3, 4, 5%? And if you look historically, I mean, that could happen. I mean, why not, right? And if that would happen, you would see a lot less demand for properties because it would be a lot more expensive to own a flat than what it is now. So something to keep in mind. And again, with all this stimulus money, all these bailouts and so on, one could argue that there could be a high correlation between all this money printing and inflation. And if inflation happens, if inflation starts kicking in, central banks will be pressured to raise interest rates to contain inflation. But again, nobody knows, and we'll have to see. The second thing you should be aware of when it comes to risk are taxes. Like everything in Denmark, taxes are high, but they could get a lot higher when it comes to real estate. And that's because in 2024, there's a new law that will get implemented, in theory, that could change the way properties are measured when it comes to their value, and there's a tax that's correlated to the value of your property. The expectation is that when this law kicks in and the new valuations come in, prices for houses, or the taxes that the houses would be paying, would go a bit lower, and when it comes to apartments, especially in the big cities, they would go a lot higher. That's, again, nobody knows exactly what would happen, but that is the expectation. And if that comes to being, you are talking about paying maybe 20% more per month, 30% more a month than what you're doing at the moment. Again, all in taxes, not that you would be servicing more debt and so on. So it's all in taxes. And one would expect with a situation like this that the market would cool down. One thing on taxes is that this law was expected to kick in this year and last year, and it got delayed for a few years for technical reasons. And in preparation or in expectation for the law to kick in, prices were actually going slightly down versus a year before. Again, it was a different context, but something to keep in mind. If taxes could go up, the market could look different. If you want to hear more about buying a house or apartment in Denmark, please hit the subscribe button over here and you will get notified when my next videos come up. And I expect to do a lot more videos moving forward into the future. With that, there's a lot more of these materials that you can see in the video description below, and also links to, for instance, all my email series and courses and so on, where I explain for free and in depth a lot of the topics that we have been discussing in this video. With that, next up, click this video over here, and then we can keep in touch next time. All the best.